Okay, so this is the question that came through yesterday, and I'll read you the question. I got permission from the parent to post it. Okay. My husband and I were both watching and are a bit confused. So I think watching the live training, we're a bit confused about how to give our 4-year-old daughter a feeling of control without giving her authority. I'm struggling to assert my authority as her parent first and not as her friend or peer. I love her and we have a great connection. I am, if anything, a bit of a pushover, very conflict adverse. And she's a pretty strong-willed, so often gets her way. She is also the first grandchild on both sides of the family and super indulged in every sense. Yesterday, we took her trampolining at Latitude, something we knew she would normally love, but yesterday she didn't want to leave the house. We forced her, and things just went downhill from there. She liked Latitude, but her heart wasn't in it, and then she didn't want to leave, and I had to carry her out kicking and screaming when our time was over. After these meltdowns, we knew she needed to have a rest, but she flat out refused. Cue hours of tantrums and more meltdowns, throwing things, door slamming, tears, stomping, etc. She didn't want to rest, but we knew it was what she needed, but we couldn't force her no matter how hard we tried. I kept encouraging her to lie down and have a cuddle and gave her options of my bed, her bed, the floor, just a rest for her body, but she was so wound up. She just kept on screaming. She wanted ice cream and to go to the playground. And my question is, how can we give her control without giving in to her oftentimes unrealistic demands? Yes. So how do I give her control and respect without losing our authority as parents?
Question. Gosh, this is so great.
Because this is such, oh my gosh, this is such a I keep getting text messages. This is such a common question. So first of all, I want to just look up what the definition of authority is, okay? So the definition of authority is the power or right to give orders, make decisions, and enforce obedience. A person or organization having political or administrative power and control. So the first thing I thought when I read that and saw the word authority multiple times was, you don't want to have authority over her. What? What is this crazy Heidi's teaching? That's exactly the point, dude. It doesn't work. You know, we all know this like intuitively because we've tried. We've done the toilet training years. We've done meal times. Like, you don't have to have been a parent for that long to know that this sort of stuff, like the toileting, food, speech, and sleep are the 4 ways that control manifests for children in power struggles, the most common ones. Obviously, kids can power struggle over everything, but those are the 4 most common ways, right? And that's like what is happening here in this situation. So the thing that I thought was interesting was the word authority being used so many times. And why I think this is so interesting is because I think we can all relate to this, that when you start learning the stuff that I teach and other parents or other people in the, respectful parenting, gentle parenting, conscious parenting, whatever you want to call it, in that realm, we all say a lot of the same stuff. And a lot of parents will say to me, it's really hard to get my head around this, like, because it's such a paradigm shift. Like, it's so different to how we were raised, and it is so different. It's counterculture. It's not mainstream. It's not what the majority of the world teaches and pushes, that children should be respected, that we don't want to be the ones in an authoritarian position. Now, authoritative and authoritarian are different parenting styles. And what I would just be encouraging you, these parents, and any of you that question resonates and you're like, that is so us, is asking yourself, what is that about? And that line at the bottom, how do I give her control and respect without losing our authority as parents? Let's just rephrase that. If I said, how do I give my husband control and respect without losing my authority as his wife? How do I give my sister control and respect without losing my authority as parents, as her sister? Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, that's exactly the angle we don't want to be taking with kids, that we are in a position of authority. Now, are we the final say over, are you allowed to cross the street and not look and just run across the street because you're the child and you have your own? No, that's not what I'm saying. So I hear what you're saying, parent, in the, but wait, what? I'm supposed to have authority. Like, yeah, but I don't think I would use the word authority. I think I would say, like, I'm here to make sure you are safe and I'm here to look after you. and keep you safe. But authority, that word just doesn't sit right with me, I guess, because, you know, when you look at the definition, it has the definition, the power or right to give orders. And it's like, when I read the whole thing, I was like, well, that's exactly why the whole situation blew up. That's why the whole thing didn't work, because you were trying to have authority over her. Nobody wants to have authority over them. Nobody, like, she didn't want to go to the trampoline place, dude. She didn't want to go. Like, fair enough. I don't want to go to weddings sometimes that I'm invited to. I don't want to go to parties. I don't want to go, like, there's a lot of stuff that we don't want to do. And if we are forced to do things, what else is she supposed to do? How else is she supposed to communicate, I don't want to do this, when she's 4, right? How is she going to communicate, I really don't want to do this, you're not listening to me, besides a tantrum when she's 4, right? That's her best attempt at communicating how she feels, what she wants, and what she needs. So I think where we could have done this differently is maybe giving her choices before. I was thinking of booking the trampoline place today, or we booked it for tomorrow. Do you want to go? No. Okay, we don't go. Like that, but that even just that, right? If I think about how I was parented and how most of us were parented, and I say most of us making a judgment on just 20 years of working in mental health and hearing lots of stories from people about what their childhoods were like, we weren't consulted on that stuff. It was like, we're going to the trampoline place. Boom, it's happening. You're going. You know what I mean? And so I think that is also just notice that what's going to come up for you when I say some of these things is your brain is going to melt a little bit. And that's not you. That's all of us. When we first learn these things and hear these concepts, it's like, what? Huh? That's not true. Because it's confronting, because it makes us admit to ourselves that there was stuff that happened in our own childhoods that sucked and that our parents maybe weren't respectful. But again, it's counterculture. What I just say to that when parents are starting is just sort of be slow and just observing the resistance that your brain will shoot up. Just be slow and noticing my brain is going to, you know, hear the stuff that Heidi says and initially want to dismiss it and say that's ridiculous. But then the thing where I always go back to is, if what you're doing is working, then don't listen to me. If what you're doing is working, keep on going. But when usually people cross my path, either on social media, in an email, or in my office, it's because something is not working. So it's like, you don't have to listen to what I say, for sure. Like, turn me off right now. But I'm trying to help you because I've seen this a million times. And this is exactly what the problem is. This is why a child behaves like that. That's why this stuff happens. Is I didn't want to go to the trampoline place. Nobody's listening to me assert myself and assert my wants and needs. I'm being ignored. I'm being dismissed. I'm being forced. Well, what do you want to do when you're forced to do something? You want to complain. You want to protest. And the thing is with this, we're talking about going to a trampoline park, right? So it's like, it's a bit different because it's not necessarily something we have to do, right? It's just something fun. So I'm sort of like, why did we have to go? Why was it such a like mandatory we have to go? And like you said, she would normally love, but yesterday she didn't want to go. I think that sometimes happens when we book stuff for our kids. Like I've totally done that. I've booked, Disney on Ice. I've booked things like that, trampoline things, ropes course things. I've booked all sorts of stuff in the past. And then the day of my non-spicy, my ketchup kid will do anything else. She's too cruisy. But my spicy is classic to like at the last minute go, I'm not going, and it's not happening. Sometimes you can accommodate and sometimes you can go, oh, well, we lose the booking, we lose the thing. Sometimes your sister's going, so we have to go. You can forfeit your turn, but your sister, she wants to go, so we're still going to go. I've had those situations too. So sometimes I think you can be a little bit flexible, but I guess what I'm saying is like, you're going to pay either way, right? I'm just trying to help you pay in a way that's a little bit cheaper and doesn't hurt as much. So yeah, you would have worn the $30 or whatever it was to go to the trampoline place, but you paid for it big time in meltdowns that lasted for hours. Personally, I'd rather wear the $20 and just go, that sucks that we just poured $3 or $20 down the toilet. But like, rather than having meltdowns and her feeling, because for me, the crux of it with the real cost of what I see at the end of this is this is her perspective. I am not respected. I am not listened to. What I want doesn't matter. I am not seen. I am not heard. My opinion does not matter. I said I didn't want to go trampolining. I said I don't want to take a nap. Nobody is listening. And the thing that I think is really important on both of these things is it comes down to bodily autonomy. My body, I was forced to go to this place, and then I was forced to rest, and I did not want to rest, and I did not want to go to this place. So part of me is like, yes, girl, fight it, like, you tell them I don't want to do it. I love that feistiness. I love that persistence. I would way rather her be on that end of the spectrum and be feisty than be a doormat and just go, and then I also think, like, what was going on for you guys in your head? And to be clear on judgment here, I'm not judging you. I have done this almost exact scenario myself multiple times with my kids in their lives, multiple times, where I am so rigid on something and I'm fighting it and fighting it and fighting it of wanting them to nap or wanting them to eat or wanting them to whatever. And then I'm like making it so much harder for yourself. Just let it go. Like, surrender. The nap is not, I remember this when they were babies. The nap is just not happening today, Heidi. Just let it go. Stop being so grippy. That's not a technical word. I can't think, like, rigid. Let it go. And those are so many of the moments where I've had, like, my worst parenting moments are when I have been rigid and inflexible and stuck on something that I have thought that she should be doing, my daughters. And I feel this in this question. I was like, I have been there. I have done this. And we all have. I know anyone who's going to watch this is going to be going, so what could we have done different? Shift out of that authority thing, man. That's old school. That's our programming. I have those moments still too, where I think, I'm the adult. She will, she should respect my authority. And when I hear that voice come on in my head, I'm like, it just doesn't work. Like, case in point, right, is this scenario. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So, and we know that control doesn't work. The other thing that I thought was interesting was this line, how can we give her control without caving into her oftentimes unrealistic demands? And then I'm like, what are her demands again? She wanted ice cream and to go to the playground. Those don't seem unrealistic to me. Those seem pretty spot on for a 4-year-old. Dude, I'm 41 and I love going to the playground and I love ice cream. I don't think those are unrealistic demands. I think it's just like we talked about yesterday, the expectation, shifting our expectations. Like I always say with boundaries, we're allowed to set boundaries, right? Because we're the parent. They're allowed to protest. They're the child. It's almost like those are our jobs. Those are our, like, division of responsibility is like, I set the rules and then you kick and fuss about it. That's okay. That's normal. You're being a kid. That's what kids do. The analogy that helps me get my head around that, I use that as a mantra a lot. I'm allowed to set the boundary and you're allowed to protest. I use that boundary a lot, or that mantra, in my head a lot when my kids whine or, I don't want it. They put, the push back on stuff. The analogy I use is if you're driving and you are in a school zone, around pickup time and the speed limit changes and you're late and you need to be somewhere, you are allowed to go, oh, the speed limit, crap, I got to slow down. I'm late. Oh, right. The boundary is allowed to be there of speed limit and you are allowed to kick and fuss and go, this is so annoying, or you get stuck in a traffic jam. Oh, this is so annoying. You're allowed to do that. That is totally okay. You are allowed to do that. You are allowed to be pissed off and frustrated at a boundary or a rule or a whatever. Totally allowed. And that's the thing I think we forget a lot, again, because we weren't raised like that, right? We were raised to say, okay, mom, okay, dad, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. We were raised to say nothing. We were raised to be silent. We were raised to take it and to be grateful that you're getting taken to a trampoline place and you should just be appreciative, like that's how we all were raised. That's old school parenting, shaming and lacking the expectation of where their brains are at and lacking the expectation of they are people, they are humans who are allowed to have their own opinions and their own wants and needs. They're not our little robots, But again, this is really wild when you first hear this stuff because it's so not how we were raised and it feels crazy when you start learning this stuff and like just the concept of being respectful to children and letting them be autonomous in their wants and their needs, and instead of always trying to control them and fix them, and instead meeting them where they're at and trying to meet them where they're at and validate and empathize, it's really bends your brain because it's different than how we were raised, It's just so different. So the other thing, that other mantra I say all the time is you pay either way. And so I hold that in my mind when I'm going into like a meltdown thing, or like for those of you that have done the spicy masterclass, you know the language, going into a spice market, you know, going into a moment where you're like, it's going to kick off, knowing that I'm going to pay either way. So how do I want to pay? And the way that I always want to pay is by me wearing the cost and by me taking a hit to my self-esteem, my ego, my agenda, whatever. I always want to wear that. Why? Because I'm the grown-up. I have the fully developed brain. I have confidence and self-esteem already. I have more agency and power inherently just in my life. Kids have no power inherently just in their size, bank accounts, cars, blah, blah, blah. So for me, I always will wear it and take the hit. What that would look like in this situation is my bank account is going to take the hit because I wasted the money on the trampoline place. My wants and needs are going to take a back seat over her wants and needs because, again, with the buckets, I want her to believe she is loved, she is valuable, she is lovable, she is enough. You don't have to go to the trampoline place if you don't feel like it. You know, maybe that night she didn't sleep right. Maybe her tummy was hurting. Maybe she's constipated. Maybe the idea of jumping around on trampolines just didn't really fit her. I don't know. But she was clear. She knew she didn't want to go. And the forcing thing, I think we've all done it. We've all forced our kids to do stuff. I will, every day of the week, I will say I force my kids all the time. But it never works. It temporarily works. But it always ends up sucking for all of us. I never feel good about it. They obviously don't feel good about it. They feel sad. And where you will really see this long-term is in adolescence, when they have a bigger body, a bank account, or maybe some pocket money, or their own phone or whatever. When they have more agency and autonomy and can do their own stuff, can say, I'm going to, Katie's house for a sleepover, and then not go to Katie's house for a sleepover. When you see this later, when you really can't force them and you really can't control them, that's when it gets dangerous, right? And that's when the goalposts change. I don't want you to get to that point, but that stuff has to start now. We have to stop forcing them now to do stuff, because otherwise then you set this pattern of forcing, and then what are you going to do in the teenagers? Just suddenly stop? It's like they've had years and years and years of that kind of dynamic and that kind of relationship, and it causes damage. It causes damage to the relationship, So to me, what feels the most unrealistic in this whole question, so that phrase, that language, how do we give her control without caving into her oftentimes unrealistic demands? I think we got to flip that and go, where am I? And I say this with love and compassion. Where am I having unrealistic demands? We have to stop and ask ourselves, where am I being unrealistic? And usually the answer is right in front of me. Because if my kid is melting down over something, then that says to me immediately, I am being unrealistic right here, because they are being so clear. I cannot in this moment regulate myself, Mom. I cannot in this moment calm down, understand why this is important, or understand why we're losing the $30 in the booking, or understand why I need to rest right now. She's so clear in saying, I can't do this right now. So then us to be demanding or thinking that she should do it is not realistic, because that is not reality. That is not what's happening right in front of you. Do you know what I mean? So we will cover this more on Tuesday of how do I, so if I can't control, so people will be like, well, how do you saying I can't control them? Well, then what do I do? And I'm like, I know. That's what it feels like when you first start this kind of work, when you first meet me and you get exposed to this kind of content. It's like, I can't control my kid. And it is, this is making a lot of sense. Yay! I was so worried this would sound offensive. Because if people start this stuff, it really does. I felt offended. For me, when I first started learning this stuff, I was like, this is ridiculous. Parents are supposed to control their kids. But the thing is, this is why I think a lot of you are here, is because you're sick of the power struggles. You're sick of yelling. You know that it's not working. You just can't, it's like, I can't put my finger on it, but I know it's not working, but I can't really nail it as to why. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you, is this is why it doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? But again, be kind and compassionate to yourself to know, okay, I've been maybe parenting in some ways out of ignorance. I didn't know some of these things. That's okay. None of us did, dude. None of us came out knowing this stuff. It's only a me or a Shafali or a Laura Markham or, there's these other people out there that then expose you to this stuff. It's not that, yeah, it's not that you come out knowing this stuff. You have to be taught it or learn it somewhere else. Again, because it's counterculture. It's not what a lot of us were raised with in our own childhoods, you know? So just a gentle reminder for us to just reflect on, what do I know about authority? What does that word mean to me? Is that a word I hold in my mind a lot when I'm interacting with my kids, that I am in the authority position? And also when you said too, Mom, I'm a bit of a pushover, conflict averse, and she is pretty strong-willed, so often gets her way. We got to be so mindful of that language, because often gets her way. Does that mean, and because this is old school to me, language and way of thinking, is it she gets her way, or is it I treat her as a human being and I am open to compromise and having discussions so that she feels heard and seen, and I'm willing to discuss things with her? That's what I think you mean. I think old school parenting would say you're being a pushover, but the way that I view it is you probably compromise with her more and you honor her more and you allow her to have more choice and autonomy. Yeah. And when you say give her a feeling of control without giving her authority, I don't think it works like that. I think if you are going to give her control, it's like you're sharing her authority. I want to research this more and see if one of the other gurus out there has a easier way to explain it, but we don't want to have authority over them. I think that's where we get screwed up. That's where it hurts us, is when I know in my parenting, when I have those moments where I'm in like super authority mom mode and like, you know, running around the house with like my sword of like, I'm the boss, you know, it sucks. Like the kids don't want to listen to that. They don't feel heard. They don't feel seen. They end up acting. Do you know where I see this the most? Is at the grocery store, when whoever wants to take all their children to the grocery store. But whenever I have both my kids at the grocery store, this happens, right? Because I get I feel pressure of other people watching me, which like none of us are immune to that crap. I'm a lot better at it now that I tune it out, but it still gets me sometimes if I feel the eyes of, you know, some 60-year-old lady staring at me. But I feel that sense of like, I need to be authority mom when I'm at the grocery store to behave and don't be like that. I need that crap. When a lot of times they're just being normal kids and they're doing super appropriate, especially when they were little, you know, when my kids were toddlers, it was very normal and appropriate stuff. But I feel that sense of I'm supposed to assert my authority and be like some sort of dictator, and they don't like that. Nobody likes that. Who likes that? Nobody likes to feel like that people are controlling me. And so what do? They push back, they protest. And that's exactly what our little friend here was doing on the trampoline day, was pushing back and going, not lady, I don't want to go. I don't want to be here. So I wonder what would happen if next time we went, you don't want to go to trampoline. Okay, maybe I could have booked it, you know, before and spoken to you, and we could have found a time that we all kind of agreed on, and we could have looked at the calendar and been like, do you want to go this day or this day? Again, choice parametered where it works for you. Would you even like to go? Let's watch some videos online of this place and see what it looks like to remind you if you've not been in a while. Would you like to go on this day or this day? Would you like to go on this day or that day? And then that morning, do you want to go? So we have to be there at 10. We could either go at 9 and then play around for a little bit, or we could go at 9:15. What do you think? So there's these little ways that you can give her lots of choice by still maintaining I'm the one in charge kind of, and I'm the one that's going to make the ultimate decision. And the language I love is Janet Lansbury's phrase, calm, confident leader. And that is that's it. I knew there was a guru out there who had a better term for it than authority. I am a calm, confident leader. And so that's maybe the better way to look at it, is that I'm leading her in this trampoline event rather than dictating, you're going, you know what I mean? It's really hard when you're learning this stuff to shift out of control and into connection, and out of control and into influence. And that's a huge fundamental of the stuff that I teach, is you are much more likely to get compliance, listening, cooperation when you are leading and influencing rather than forcing and controlling. Does that make sense? So we'll talk more about that on Tuesday. Anyway, thank you for the question. Such a great question. And I would love to hear in the comments what that I just said, are some of you going like, this sounds crazy, but I'm trusting you. I'm going to try to stick with it, even though I found my brain just going, resist what Heidi's saying, resist this concept of children being, you know, people. Because it is, all of us feel that, dude, when you start this stuff. All of us feel that, because it just feels so different. And it's often confronting too, because it's an acknowledgement of, whoa, I was really disrespected as a kid. I was given such minimal choice. I had no autonomy as a kid. Whoa, it's confronting, which is why a lot of us, our brain doesn't want to let us go there.